What if the earliest signs of dementia weren't memory loss? What if they were hidden in your mood swings, the way you walk, or how you answer a simple question? Nearly 7 million Americans are living with dementia right now, and over 60% of them missed the earliest warning signs completely. That's because dementia doesn't begin with forgetting names or getting lost. It starts in much sneakier ways. In fact, scientists now believe it can begin 20 years before a diagnosis. Yes, 2 decades of silent changes inside your brain while you carry on like everything is fine. In 2023, a study published in Alzheimer's and Dementia revealed that certain subtle changes in behavior predicted cognitive decline with over 88% accuracy. That means many people are walking around with early dementia signals lighting up in their body and mind, and they're ignoring them daily. Worse, these early signs are often mistaken for stress, aging, or just having a bad day. But inside, the brain is changing. Neurons begin dying, brain volume starts shrinking, and inflammation spreads silently across key regions like the hippocampus. And yet 99% of people miss these clues entirely. Why? Because the early signs don't always feel like brain problems. In this video, we'll reveal the 11 early signs of dementia you might be ignoring every single day, ranked from least to most dangerous. Stick around because number 1 isn't just the most overlooked. It's now scientifically linked to both early-stage dementia and heart failure and could raise your risk by over 57% if ignored. But almost nobody talks about it. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for in yourself or someone you love, so you can act before it's too late. Before we dive in, from where are you watching us, drop your country or city in the comments below. We're reading and replying to every single one. Now, without any further ado, let's start with number 11. Number 11, impulsive behavior or poor judgment. It often starts with something small. Maybe you give a large tip at a restaurant without realizing it. Maybe you start trusting people too easily, even strangers. Or perhaps you suddenly begin spending money on unnecessary items like gadgets or useless subscriptions. These might seem like random lapses in judgment, but inside the brain, something else is happening. The frontal lobes, which control decision-making and impulse control, are often among the first areas affected by neurodegeneration. When these areas lose volume or connectivity, the brain's ability to regulate behavior drops, and that's when you start seeing strange or risky actions. One study from Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience in 2020 followed 1,300 adults over 5 years and found that those who began showing signs of poor financial judgment were 72% more likely to develop dementia later on. What's tricky is that these moments don't feel alarming at first. You may just think you're being generous, spontaneous, or even funny. But when it becomes a pattern, when there's a consistent drop in self-control or planning, it could be the brain's warning flag, and it often comes before any memory loss at all. Number 10, withdrawing from social activities. You used to enjoy chatting with neighbors, attending group classes, or calling your friends on the weekend, but now, for some reason, it just feels easier to stay home. You might blame it on being tired or just not in the mood. But the truth runs deeper. Dementia doesn't just rob memory, it also chips away at motivation, emotional recognition, and language processing. As the brain struggles to follow conversations, understand humor, or find the right words, social interaction becomes frustrating and even embarrassing. So to avoid that discomfort, many people unconsciously begin to withdraw. According to a 2021 study from the Lancet Healthy Longevity, social withdrawal was one of the most common early predictors of dementia, even more so than mild memory complaints. The study found that adults who became socially isolated had a 1.66 higher risk of developing dementia over the following 4 years. This isolation isn't always obvious. You might still go out occasionally, but you stop engaging deeply. You listen less, you contribute less, and gradually your world gets smaller. That's not just sadness or introversion. That could be your brain struggling to keep up. Number 9, subtle changes in vision or depth perception. If you've noticed yourself bumping into furniture more often, spilling things, or struggling to judge distances when driving or parking, don't ignore it. These might seem like coordination or aging issues, but in many cases, they're actually early signs of visual dysfunction caused by brain changes. The part of the brain that processes spatial awareness and visual data, especially the occipital and parietal lobes, can begin to degrade long before memory issues arise. That means your brain might receive confusing signals from your eyes, making everyday tasks feel harder. A 2019 study published in Neurology followed nearly 2,000 participants and found that those with declining visual skills had a 65% higher risk of developing dementia within 3 years, even if their memory tests were normal. This means those small visual slips might be your first warning. You might notice you miss a step, reach for something and knock it over, or feel unsure in unfamiliar places. The key is frequency. When these things happen repeatedly, and you can't explain them, your brain might be losing its visual processing edge. Number 8. Difficulty completing familiar tasks. You've made the same recipe for years, but now you have to check the instructions 3 times. You've driven the same route to the store, yet today you missed a turn. You sit down to pay bills, but forget what you were doing halfway through. These aren't simple, forgetful moments. They're breakdowns in the ability to sequence, plan, and execute tasks that used to feel automatic. This early sign shows up in the brain's parietal and frontal regions, which help manage complex activities like cooking, driving, or managing finances. It's not just memory, it's about how your brain organizes actions. In a 2022 study from the Journal of the American Geriatric Society, researchers found that participants who had trouble completing multi-step daily tasks had a 53% greater likelihood of progressing from mild cognitive impairment to dementia over a 2-year period. That's a powerful signal. You might notice it in moments like not knowing how to use the remote you've always used or feeling confused halfway through brushing your teeth. These interruptions aren't laziness. They're early clues that the brain's pathways are losing efficiency. Number 7. Language problems or word-finding difficulties. You're in the middle of a conversation and suddenly you can't remember the word refrigerator. You point and say the cold thing. You laugh it off, but inside something feels off. This isn't just forgetfulness. This is a glitch in the brain's language centers. The left temporal lobe, which handles naming and word retrieval, can start to degrade early in dementia, and the signs often begin with what's called anomic aphasia, which is the inability to find the right word even when you know it. It feels like the word is on the tip of your tongue, but it just won't come out. A study published in Brain and Language in 2018 followed adults with mild word-finding issues and found they were nearly 3 times more likely to develop Alzheimer's disease within 6 years than those without those issues. That's how predictive this symptom can be. The danger is when it becomes frequent. You might start substituting words, saying thing or stuff more often. You might avoid complex conversations, or you might find yourself become quieter. And that's not personality, that's neurological. Number 6. Increased anxiety or restlessness. You might feel jittery, tense, or suddenly uncomfortable in situations that never used to bother you. Maybe it's going to the grocery store. Maybe it's being in a loud restaurant. Maybe it's being alone for too long. This rising sense of anxiety is often brushed off as stress or just being sensitive. But in the brain, something much deeper is happening. Early-stage dementia frequently targets the amygdala and prefrontal cortex, 2 regions that regulate fear, emotional response, and decision-making. When the connection between them weakens, the brain starts overreacting to stimuli. Everyday events feel overwhelming. Small issues trigger big emotional reactions. You might start pacing, tapping your fingers, or needing to leave situations early without fully understanding why. A 2020 study in the American Journal of Psychiatry found that new-onset anxiety, especially when paired with mild memory lapses, was associated with a 96% increased risk of developing Alzheimer's disease within 3 years. That's nearly double the risk. What makes this so dangerous is how easily it gets dismissed. You might think you're just going through a rough patch or chalk it up to getting older. But when this persistent anxiety feels unexplainable and grows over time, it's time to pay attention. It's not all in your head. It's inside your brain, and it's not random. Number 5. Trouble understanding visual information or reading. This one slips under the radar more often than any other. You sit down to read the newspaper and suddenly the words seem harder to process. Not because your eyesight is blurry, your glasses are fine, but because your brain feels slow. You reread the same sentence over and over. You lose your place. Diagrams, street signs, or even subtles on TV start feeling harder to grasp. This decline isn't about the eyes. It's about the brain's ability to process what the eyes see. Regions like the posterior cortex, especially the angular gyrus, start to lose volume, making interpretation difficult, even when visual input is perfectly normal. In a large-scale 2021 study from JAMBA Neurology, researchers followed over 10,000 older adults and found that those who had difficulties with reading comprehension and visual interpretation had a 49% higher chance of developing early-stage dementia symptoms over the next 4 years. Even more alarming, many participants never reported memory problems, just frustration with reading or focusing visually. If someone you know used to love reading, puzzles, or visual games and now avoids them or complains of not being able to concentrate, that's not just tiredness. That could be the brain beginning to lose its visual decoding abilities. Number 4. Neglecting personal hygiene or appearance. You used to shower every day. You used to pick out matching clothes, comb your hair, brush your teeth, and maybe even wear a little perfume or cologne. But now you forget, or it just doesn't feel important. Or you convince yourself, I'll do it later, and never do. This isn't laziness. It's not depression. It's a breakdown in the brain's executive functioning system, the part responsible for motivation, attention, and goal completion. As dementia begins to impact regions like the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, initiating routine tasks becomes incredibly difficult. These tasks used to feel automatic. Now they feel confusing, tedious, or completely irrelevant. A 2017 study in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease tracked changes in personal hygiene among early-stage dementia patients and found that 83% began showing signs of grooming neglect within the first 12 months, even when memory was still mostly intact. And this doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it starts with small things. Wearing the same shirt several days in a row, skipping a shower, or forgetting deodorant. What's key is the change in pattern. When someone whom used to care begins neglecting the basics, that's a cognitive warning sign, not a personality change. Number 3, repeating yourself in conversation. You just told your friend a story and 5 minutes later you tell it again. You ask your spouse the same question twice during dinner. You call your daughter and ask about a holiday plan you already discussed last night. These repetitions are subtle at first, and people might politely ignore them, but over time they become harder to miss and harder to stop. This type of repetition comes from damage to the hippocampus, which is the brain's short-term memory hub. As neurons in this area begin to die or disconnect, the brain starts struggling to store and retrieve fresh information. You can remember your childhood clearly, but forget something that happened this morning. A 2018 study published in Neurobiology of Aging found that participants who began repeating themselves in conversation without realizing it were over 5 times more likely to receive a dementia diagnosis within 2 years. That's one of the strongest predictive correlations found in behavioral dementia studies to date. What makes this so dangerous is how it gets normalized. Family members might say, "Oh, you already told me," and brush it off. The person themselves may feel embarrassed but unaware. But when the repeats become frequent and consistent, it's a clear signal that the brain is struggling to encode new memories. Number 2, losing track of time, dates, or seasons. You wake up and can't remember what day it is. You think it's Monday, but it's Thursday. You forget what month we're in, or you put on a sweater when it's 90 degrees outside. These aren't just signs of distraction. They can signal a breakdown in one of the brain's most critical navigation systems, temporal orientation. The brain uses a network called the default mode network, especially areas like the posterior cingulate cortex, to help us mentally travel through time. This system helps us understand past, present, and future. When that network starts to fail, you lose your mental calendar. You lose the ability to estimate time, and you lose the sequence of events. A 2020 study from the Journal of Gerontology examined temporal confusion in older adults and found that those who experienced frequent time disorientation had a 62% greater likelihood of progressing to moderate dementia within 18 months. This isn't the same as occasionally forgetting a meeting. It's a deep-rooted confusion about the passage of time. You might feel like hours have passed when it's only been minutes, or think something happened yesterday when it was actually 2 weeks ago. The confusion is during, and it becomes more dangerous when paired with missed medications, appointments, or safety routines. Number 1. Subtle changes in walking gait disturbance. It's something almost nobody associates with dementia, the way you walk. But this is one of the earliest and most telling signs that something is going wrong inside the brain. Maybe your steps have become slower. Maybe you're dragging your feet slightly or swinging one arm less. Maybe your stride has shortened, or your walk feels less fluid, almost robotic. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't feel dramatic, but it's changing. And your brain is the reason why. Walking isn't just about muscles and joints. It's a whole body-brain activity. It relies on the cerebellum for coordination, the basal ganglia for rhythm and movement initiation, the motor cortex for precision, and most importantly, the frontal lobes for planning and sequencing. As dementia begins to affect these areas, especially the frontal subcortical circuits, the way you move through space begins to break down. It's not weakness, it's disconnection. In 2022, researchers from the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease Reports analyzed over 16,000 seniors and found that those with a slower gait speed and altered step rhythm were more than twice as likely to develop dementia over the next 4 years. But even more alarming was a 2021 study published in Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience, which found that early gait changes in older adults predicted not only dementia risk, but also cardiovascular failure, especially heart failure, with astonishing accuracy. Participants with noticeable gait disturbances had a 57% higher chance of future heart failure diagnosis, even before any heart-related symptoms showed up. That means your feet might be telling a story your brain and heart are both writing, and most people never notice it. This is why subtle changes in walking, slowing down, imbalance, or hesitation are now being used by neurologists as a key red flag for early-stage dementia. It's one of the few outward signs that can be caught on video, observed without needing a memory test, and tracked over time. But because it doesn't seem related to the mind, most families ignore it. They think it's arthritis, aging, or a lack of exercise. But if someone you love starts walking differently, even slightly, and they didn't used to, that could be the body's earliest cry for help. So now you've seen it. The 11 early signs of dementia that you might be ignoring every single day. From how you speak to how you walk, from how you plan your day to how you manage your emotions. These changes may seem small, but inside the brain, they can represent enormous shifts. The most dangerous part, many of these symptoms appear 10 to 20 years before a dementia diagnosis. That means they're not just signs, they're opportunities. Opportunities to catch it early, to slow it down, to intervene with lifestyle, nutrition, sleep, movement, cognitive engagement. All the tools we have when the disease is still in its earliest stages. But the first step is awareness. That's what this video is about, helping you see the invisible signs before they become irreversible damage. Now we want to hear from you. Have you or someone in your family experienced one or more of these early signs? Did anyone brush them off thinking it was normal aging? Let's open up the conversation in the comments below. You never know who you might help just by sharing. And let us know which one surprised you the most. Was it the walking, the vision changes, or the repeating stories? If this video helped open your eyes, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. You might just save a life or a mind. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos just like this, because understanding your brain is the first step to protecting it. Thanks for watching.